public information.
I'm losing you, Nick. Nick, I'm losing you. I'm losing you.
Yeah. So go to commercial. Fine.
Seeing yourself as an Estonian makes you anti-British to a certain extent.
Really?
Yeah.
If you were the Prime Minister, would you have prescribed the Palestine Action Group as a terrorist organization?
Based on the information I've seen, and and so let's caveat, I've not seen all the information. Based on the information I've seen, no, I would not have. It's not about saying this is my country and you don't belong here. This is us saying this is our country. Show us you belong here.
How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you very much.
What's your take in terms of the big picture here? Is this government defending free speech? Is it protecting itself from something, or has freedom gone out the window in the UK?
Freedom's gone out the window in the UK, and it's not because of this Labour government. It's because I'd say for at least 3 decades we've been going down this path. It's complicated. It's complicated on many levels. So let's look at Palestine Action, the prescribing of Palestine Action as a terrorist organisation. I'll be completely honest. Until they climbed or cut through the fence at that airfield, I'd never even heard of Palestine Action. They committed criminal damage. Could you class it as terrorism? You could make a case for it, but you could make an equally solid case that it wasn't terrorism, it was criminal damage. But what's happened now is it used to be the left who always went on about free speech and freedom, because up to the 60s, up to the 70s, the left were always the minority. The left were never really in power. They didn't have the cultural power, societal power. And then from the 80s, 90s onwards, they started getting that power. And what do people do when they get power? They become corrupted. So the left then started corrupting themselves and not wanting free speech, not wanting free expression, just like the right had done before that. And now we've got the situation where the laws are being used against the left that they never saw coming. All these laws about freedom of speech, freedom of expression have been created over the last 30 years to penalize people on the so-called right of politics. Left-right makes no sense, but you get what I mean. And it's now hitting the left, and the left don't like it because they're going to themselves, oh, I didn't see this coming, this unintended consequence.
It's really strange, because when I was in student politics in the 1980s, I was always marching with the left. I was an independent. I was in no political party till 1989. But we were marching with the hard left, the soft left, the left, just against a Conservative government. And we had far more freedom to do it back then under the Tories than we have under Labour now. And it seems to me, Nick, something perverse has happened. We can go into the details in a minute, because I want to show you a clip about what's actually been going on in terms of Palestine Action protesters. But something perverse has happened to freedom, where the left is now censoring itself to an extent.
They are. Let's go back to Palestine Action for the moment. So if Palestine Action are a terrorist organisation, which our government says they are, well, in which case supporting a terrorist organisation is a criminal offence and those people should be arrested. I get that. I support that. But if we roll back a bit further, are Palestine Action a terrorist organisation? I wouldn't class that. I mean, I don't agree with them. I think they're idiots. But even I wouldn't say they're a terrorist organisation. So therefore, it never should be prescribed in the first place as that. But this government can see itself losing power, losing control. Yeah. We've just spent 2 decades penalising the so-called right, coming down hard on patriots, clamping down on free speech, and suddenly there's a left-wing organisation a little bit out of control, and the government has gone, we're being accused of being a 2-tier system here, 2-tier criminal justice system. We're going to have to come down hard on these now because we're losing the people. I don't think they wanted to, because it damages Labour, I think they thought to themselves, if we don't, there's going to be riots.
Well, here we go then. The irony is, I bet you the attitude of Labour has increased the support for Palestine action. Let's have a look at how the UK has been reported abroad. These are demonstrations that occurred recently, and the context here is remarkable. A whole bunch of people who don't look to me like professional demonstrators sat with signs talking up Palestine action, simply saying that they essentially support Palestine action. Here's what happened. Let's take a look.
Willing lawbreakers offering themselves up in Parliament Square today to a heavy police presence by very obviously showing support for an organisation the government has banned for engaging in terrorist activities.
It's a very similar scene to that of a month ago when 531 people were arrested. And it's exactly the same drill. The protesters write on their placards the words Palestine action, and then the police swoop in and pick them off and arrest them one by one.
Good man.
Don't really I'm a terrorist. It's news to me grandkids anyway.
We're going over there.
Like last time, many of those being marched into the police vans were older people. They did so with cheers of support from the crowds, while the police were jeered.
Shame on you! Shame on you!
Despite the insistence of organisers that this should be a peaceful and sometimes silent protest as before, today's atmosphere was more tense, almost as if the police and the protesters knew the script this time round.
Now that's the issue. Look at that that situation there. We've got people who quite clearly, in my opinion, maybe I'll get arrested for saying this, don't look like they're about to storm the Bastille. They're not about to storm Parliament or dig a tunnel and put gunpowder under the Commons. And yet these people are being arrested for holding up signs, Nick.
Let's go back in time 80 years, and let's say these same people were here 80 years ago with signs saying, I support Adolf Hitler, I support the Nazis. That would be a criminal offence. That would be looked at being traitors. We're at war with Nazi Germany. You're supporting our enemies. It's the same situation now. So if Palestine Action is a terrorist organisation, which I don't think they are, but they've been prescribed that they are, so therefore, every single one of these people are breaking the law. They're supporting our enemies in according to the law. Now, it shouldn't matter if these people being arrested are old, disabled, in wheelchairs. And that doesn't matter because I support equality. I support treating old people, disabled people, and people in wheelchairs. I support treating them like everybody else. So therefore, if they're breaking the law, they need to be arrested. But let me say again, I don't think Palestine Action should be prescribed, but they are. So the police have a duty and the police can't turn the blind eye. And these people are protesting to be arrested. That's why they're doing it. They want to be arrested to raise the cause of Free Palestine and Palestine Action.
Isn't there an irony then? Well, actually, you make a really good point I hadn't considered. If they are a terrorist organization, the police have a duty to apply the law. Now, we can have a whole separate conversation, and we have talked about this before, the bias in the police. But fair point. So the police, according to your thesis, are not really at fault here because they've been told to do something. Their job is to obey orders. And therefore, if these individuals are technically supporting a terrorist organization, then under the law, they can be and potentially should be arrested regardless of their age, their level of ability, or how docile they are. Okay, I get that, Nick. But the fundamental point is, this is preposterous because actually, there's no, in my view, there was no prospect of the people being arrested being enemies of the state.
Right, so let's look at a different scenario. So the police don't arrest anybody at that demonstration. So it's now semi-legal to support a terrorist organisation in the UK. So next week, we have 10,000 people supporting Hamas, supporting ISIS, supporting many other real dangerous terrorist organisations. How can the police then act differently the following week when most of those people will be brown to the week before where most of those people were white. The police, no matter what the police do, are on hiding for nothing. That's always been what the police have always had to accept. They've always on hiding for nothing. I don't think this is a policing issue, as in it's wrong. There's many faults here, but I don't. For once, I'm not blaming the police for this. I'm blaming the politicians, and I'm blaming the law that was passed to prescribe Palestine action.
I actually salute you for what you've just said, because you are very fair-minded. We've talked about the breakdown in relationship between the police and the public before, but on this occasion, you're not holding that against them. That's one of the things I really think is good about you, Nick. You haven't got this one-track axe to grind. So let's bank this. What you're saying, and in my opinion, I agree with, the police on this occasion were doing their job. However stupid the legislation, they were doing their job. So the problem lies not with the enforcement authorities, it lies with the legislators.
It lies with the Home Office. It was the Home Office, I believe, who prescribed Palestine Action as a terrorist organization.
Okay, and so is there any aspect of the police treatment in this situation that you'd have thought was unreasonable?
Nothing I can say. I mean, they were softly, they were apologetic, they were friendly, they didn't want to upset the crowd, but they had a job to do according to the law. I don't see how the police could have done this any different. And then if we look at the government, the Home Office prescribing them as Palestine Action, as a terrorist organization, I would imagine part of this is also about trying to get a grip on problems that are coming down the line. They know there's going to be urban violence. We know there's going to be troubles over the next few years, violence, especially in the inner cities. They know that. And I think two things. I think, A, they're sending a warning signal to people that we'll prescribe you, and this is what happens when we prescribe you. I think they're also trying to dampen down existing organizations who are connected to Free Palestine. It's that thing again, that when failing governments and failing establishments, especially authoritarian ones, start losing power, the go-to play is always, we need to be tougher, we need to be harder. And the tighter the grip they've got on a society, the more communities slip through their fingers. And that's what they're afraid of, and that's what they're trying to avoid. But as they're trying to avoid it, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Yeah. They're upsetting more people than they're trying to get on board.
Okay, that's in a moment. Sorry, I've been asked to just play that we're going to play just a little trailer about some of the other shows on the station. But after the break, I want to have a look at what the Parliament's been saying, and specifically the contradictions between what Keir Starmer's saying about Palestine and what he's doing, and the fact that a lot of MPs are actually railing against what's happening. Lots of Labour MPs are quite sympathetic, very sympathetic to Palestine, as well they might be, because there was a time when Labour was overtly pro-Palestine and not that keen on Israel, to the point that it caused trouble, internal trouble. Here's a clip of some of the discussions that have happened in Parliament about this very same subject.
Arrested in London on Saturday, including a senior priest, an elderly Jewish man, a teacher who has spent years with Gazan children and has witnessed the horror of seeing them killed by Israeli troops over the last couple of years. These people are not terrorists. While I'm sure everybody in the House would agree that anybody attacking serving police officers in the streets deserves to be arrested, does the Minister accept that the use of counter-terror powers is wholly disproportionate to the peaceful action these people were taken by simply holding signs, and sets a dangerous precedent for free speech?
Minister. I don't accept her critique about the precedent with regard to free speech for the reasons that I've already referenced, and the tens of thousands of people who were on the streets of London this weekend expressing their free speech. The police have difficult judgments to make. I don't accept our analysis that this wasn't proportionate. The government has an absolute responsibility to act when the evidence suggests that we need to take decisions in order to secure the public safety.
I have written to the former Home Secretary twice on this matter. matter because many legislators here today have yet to see the evidence which satisfies us about the proportionality of the application of the prescription of Palestine Action and indeed the public's right to protest and freedom of speech and the balance of which government holds that. If I could encourage him to review this law, not least because it has, according to what the government wants, a contrary impact because, of course, the more arrests, the more it's drawing attention to Palestine Action.
Hundreds of peaceful protesters have been arrested this weekend in the name of national security. But in what way does a peaceful protester's tactic of holding a banner compromise national security? And if the aim...
And on it goes for once. I'm willing to praise a Liberal Democrat. I don't often do that, Nick. Not because I'm a bitter loser, but because I think that they've almost completely sold out to the establishment. But there was MP after MP coming up and saying, this is disproportionate. And applying the earlier point you made, which I can see now is quite right, that the police can't be blamed for the legislation. Are we in a position where the legislation is so bad that we have Labour, Liberal Democrat and others complaining to the government that this is a totalitarian move?
Absolutely. If I was in the chamber, I would be asking questions about the demonstrations and the invest and is it overextent. All that's irrelevant. I'd want to go back to the core of the point, which is what evidence did you use to prescribe this organization? Was it the fact they broke into a RAF base and spray painted planes? Because that's all I know they've done. Is that it? Is that why now you're calling them a terrorist organization? Because if that's all the evidence you've got, then that doesn't hit the threshold to me. It's criminal damage. Prosecute them, send them to jail. Absolutely. But terrorism. So that I'd be wanting the government to release the information and show us how they reached that level to be able to say this is a terrorist organization. They may not be able to name people, which is fine if it's all undercover work, but I want to hear that Palestine Action are collecting weapons, are planning a bombing campaign, are collecting money in this country and sending it to Hamas. I want some detail about why you think they're a terrorist organization. Because if we give the government got this power, but if we let them get away with this, and it turns out they never should have used it, then an organization me and you join next week that the government don't like can then be prescribed as a terrorist organization. Yeah. Hanging flags on lampposts, that's a terrorist organization activity. Your talk, that's a terrorist organization act. We need to be careful. We need to hold this government to account. And I want to know why they decided the Palestine Action is a terrorist organization.
You know what? You said something really interesting. I had a big debate, actually an argument with a migrant who had come to this country who didn't like the flags on flagpoles, on street lamps. And I explained.
Well, I hope you told him to get out if you don't like him.
You sexist. It was a woman.
Oh, I'd have carried her bags and told her to get out.
She's a legal migrant. But I'd said something else. I said, this all began because a girl, I think she was 12 years old, something like that, went to school, I think in north of England. Now, I could get the facts slightly wrong, but the story's about right. For a day when they were going to celebrate ethnic diversity and different cultures. And she went in a Union Jack dress, which I imagine was a bit like the Spice Girls one, though hopefully not revealing because she was pretty young. And she was going to talk about Britishness, and she wasn't allowed. She wasn't allowed. That's what started this. Yeah. That the ethnicity that embraced my family, my Estonian family, the time of crisis in my family 80 years ago, causing my family to embrace Britishness, that in that situation, she was prevented from talking about the country that saved the world from Nazism. Yeah. You mentioned Nazis before. That's what started this. And I'm proud to be in a country where I see the British and the flag of St. George all over the place, like you go in America, like what you see in America, where house after house has a flagpole and the stars and stripes on it.
Yeah, absolutely. The flag, the St. George flag, the Union flag, is not about division. It's not about saying this is my country and you don't belong here. This is us saying this is our country. Show us you belong here. And all it takes is them to embrace the flag, embrace the culture, embrace the country. And most 99% of people will go, well, you're British then, because you want the best for this country. What we've got at the moment is we've got millions of foreigners living here who see the UK and see England as basically a cash cow. I'm living here because it's better for me. I'm saving money. I'm having a better life. But my home is really Pakistan. My home is really, I'm a Nigerian. You know that I'm a Nigerian. And they they embrace my country like I embrace my country. And the flag is about us reclaiming the country. Yeah. And it's going to force foreigners to say, right, I'm going to have to dismiss part of my heritage and most of my heritage because I want to stay here and I want to be British and I'm going to be British. That's what we're asking. We can't be a divided nation any longer.
I'll push back a bit on that. I still consider myself to have Estonian heritage, but I don't ram it down other people's throats. I don't live in an Estonian enclave where we make no effort to be British. This country, for better or worse, has given me most of my life. I've lived in another country as well, and I travel a lot. But this country gave me my life. Because if my parents hadn't been accepted here with their parents, they'd have been sent back to the Soviet Union and been killed. So I am so grateful for this. This is the interesting point, Nick. And what I'm seeing now is a situation where people come here without really wanting to embrace the culture. Having said that, and getting back to the core point here, we have a total confusion about where the government is with regard to Palestine, as well as arresting people of all ages for holding up signs peacefully supporting the Palestine Action Group. I think that's the full name of it. That's what I'm told. He also says he's going to recognize Palestine.
News on the war in Gaza. Just moments ago, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer said the UK will officially recognize Palestinian statehood in September if Israel has not agreed to a ceasefire in Gaza by then. Starmer also laid out the conditions Hamas must meet. Listen.
Unchanged and unequivocal. They must immediately release all of the hostages, sign up to a ceasefire, disarm, and accept that they will play no part in the government of Gaza. And we'll make an assessment in September on how far the parties have met these steps. But no one should have a veto over our decision. So this is the way forward. We will keep working with all our international partners to end the suffering, get aid flooding into Gaza, and deliver a more stable future for the Middle East.
And so we've got this contradiction because, Nick, Keir Starmer, having said Israel has a perfect right to defend itself, is now saying, I'm going to recognize Gaza as a nation state. Is he breaking the law? Should he be arrested? Because implicitly, he's kind of supporting the same position that the Palestine Action Group is holding.
He said nothing of the sort. What he basically said was, I'll recognize Palestine if they cure cancer and colonize Mars, because he laid out his criteria to do that, and it's all impossible. They need to hand over all the hostages.
You've watched the intro. You've watched the intro, Nick.
They need to disarm. All these things is laid out. He knows 100% Hamas will never do it. This is just a PR stunt to try to keep the far left of his party and the white progressives on board in his party. That's all that is. He knows he's never, ever going to recognize Palestine because the Americans will not allow him to do it. There'll be a punishment. So he doesn't want to do it anyway. So therefore, he's laid out conditions that will never, ever be met. But at least he can say to his party, well, I was willing to recognize Palestine. It's a cop-out. He's a coward. The man's a coward.
But where do you stand on? Okay, why do you say it's complete nonsense? Is what he's saying totally impossible in your view?
Yes, absolutely. So he wants, by September, he wants Hamas to release all the hostages. They won't do that. He wants them to give up all their arms. They're never going to do that. And he wants them to declare they're never going to be involved in politics in Gaza again. They're never going to do that. I'm an idiot, and I know they're not going to do any of that.
You're no idiot. You're no idiot. I can tell you. You wouldn't be on the show if you were an idiot. All right, so let's go into this just a little bit deeper. If you were the Home Secretary or Prime Minister, or the intellectual colossus that is David Lammy as Deputy Prime Minister,
Deputy Prime Minister Lembit. I mean, once that was announced, I was like, "Oh, come back, Angela Rayner, please come back."
Is he really that bad?
Oh, the man's a fool.
Okay, well,
he's a racist, and he's anti-British, and he's anti-white. At least Rayner.
Hang on.
Loved the country.
How's he a racist? I don't see him as a racist.
Oh, he's a racist.
No. How? Sorry, I said no. I should be asking you. How's he a racist?
He thinks that the British owe the Caribbean reparations. He doesn't see himself
of colonialism.
Yes, he doesn't see himself as British. He sees himself as a Ghanaian.
Has he ever said that?
He said that in Parliament.
I see myself as an Estonian, but not all the time. Does that make me a racist, Nick?
No. You wanting reparations makes you a racist if that's what you wanted. You seeing yourself as an Estonian makes you anti-British to a certain extent.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you know, little aside here, Nick, if you've got a few more minutes, because I really want to get into this for a moment. I'm really loving this conversation. We're going to have this further. But basically, it was the British that came to Estonia's aid in its war of independence about 107 years ago, something like that. And Estonia has always been grateful for Britain for losing over 100 servicemen in the defense of Estonia against a very formidable opponent. I would say to you that as an Estonian, I am tremendously grateful for Britain. I'm not a racist against Britain. I'm really grateful that Britain actually lost lives. There's a plaque thanks to a Lord Carlisle who moved to Estonia, actually, in the south of England, in recognition of those servicemen. And that plaque only went up about 20 years ago. So I'm putting it to you that it's possible for me to say I'm an Estonian. By the way, I'm no friend of Lammy's. I tend to agree that he's an idiot. But it's possible, and you can come back any way you want. I'm not going to cancel you. To have a view, it depends what you say, but okay. But to say I am Estonian, I am Ghanaian, if that's the right way of saying it, and not be racist. Is that really fair?
Yeah, but it's nuanced. So let me explain a bit better. So you being of Estonian heritage and ethnicity is not the same as you standing up in Parliament as a British MP going, as an Estonian man. There's a big difference there, because if you're in the British Houses of Parliament, then you shouldn't be there. If you're an Estonian man, if you're a Ghanaian man, you shouldn't be there, because that is the signal you're sending that I'm not British. I'm not like you guys. I'm different. I'm Estonian. I'm Ghanaian.
I did once say, when I was an MP, I did once say that, as I don't know exactly remember how I phrased it. I'm not going to go back through Hansard to find out. I said, as an Estonian, that means that previously Estonians in Britain were massively underrepresented, but now they're overrepresented by about 1,000% or something like that. Yeah. So I probably used that phrase, Nick. Oh dear.
but not. But again, in that statement, you're talking about ethnicity. You're talking about the ethnicity of Estonians underrepresented in Parliament. That in itself isn't racist. But standing up in Parliament saying, "I'm not British," is
I never
for me.
said that. I never said that. But nor has David Lammy. Come on, he's never said. Has he ever said he's not British? Really?
No, but he said as a guy. I think he was stood up in this. This is a Lammy incident. He stood up in Parliament. No, he was sat anywhere. Wherever I think he was in a committee. Whatever he said, standing here as a Ghanaian, and he was sat down as he was saying it, and it was like so. For me, he's anti-British. He's anti-British of thinking the British owe reparations. He's racist for thinking the British owe reparations. I just don't like the man. Yeah, and this is part of the problem with multiculturalism and immigration, is because we get to these issues. I could stand up in Parliament if I was elected and say, as an Irishman, but I'm not Irish. I could get an Irish passport if I wanted to. I'm entitled to it, but I'm not Irish. I don't feel Irish. I've never thought I was Irish. I never want to be Irish. I'm English because I've embraced this country and I live here. But immigration keeps creating these divisions.
You know the issue. This is really interesting. The issue is that we couldn't have this conversation anywhere else. Really?
No,
because you'd be cancelled. They put adverts on, or they put a public information.
I'm losing you, Nick. Nick, I'm losing you. Yeah.
So go to commercial. Go. Oh, I'm just hearing. Oh, it's weather. There's a news flash. But this is really interesting. I want to do a whole show with you. About this subject because this is fascinating. By the way, you've got a better tan than me. I look pasty today, so maybe you have a secret to tell. Maybe the Irish have more sun. They've got more rain actually because I grew up there. Let's consider this because really we're meant to be talking about free speech, and by the way, we are because we're illustrating free speech at the same time as worrying about what's been going on. And here's a question. So we've just had a debate and we haven't finished it. And viewers, we will come back to it. I promise. We'll have a great debate about that pretty soon. We have been talking about David Lammy's context, his language, and so on. The problem I've got is that this government could actually start thinking that what you said was unacceptable, or maybe what I said was unacceptable, because they politicize free speech. Free speech is not politicizable. You either believe in it or you don't. Neither of us is inciting racial hatred. We're expressing a point of view. And what we are now getting is Parliament, led by this ridiculously big majority because of our electoral system, which can actually cancel you, imprison you for hurty words. There's a classic example of this. It was Lucy Connelly, who basically was at a conference I went to. There she is with Nigel Farage, who was put in prison for over a year for hurty words, stupid words. What she said was stupid, but hurty words on the internet. While Ricky Jones, a Labour councillor, said, let's slit the throats of the far right. That's essentially what he meant.
Yeah.
And he walked free.
Yeah.
How do you square that?
Again, nuanced. Those cases look similar, but were very different. Lucy Connelly was given bad advice by solicitors and she was told to plead guilty. Ricky Jones had enough sense to plead innocence. So therefore, he's got his day in court, and 12 British people sat in judgment of him and went, he didn't mean it. It sounded bad, but I believe him. He didn't want the people in the other protest to have their throats slit. It was a saying. It was a nasty saying, but it was a saying. Lucy Connelly, what she said, I don't even think was illegal. She said, I don't care if they burn the migrant hotels down. I don't care. So she didn't tell people to do it. She wasn't celebrating it being done. She was saying, I don't care. It's now illegal in this. You can get a year in jail now for not caring about things the government cares about. Hers was so much worse, what happened to her. But the mistake she made was listening to her duty solicitor, who all of them at the time had pressure from above, telling them all to plead guilty, plead guilty, plead guilty. And she pleaded guilty and got 3 years and was out in 1.
Do you know, I went to the conference, very impressive conference, actually. I covered it briefly this morning, covered a lot more in a couple of days, where Lucy Connelly was talking. And she was asked the question, should Ricky Jones have gone to prison like you? And she said, he's an idiot, but neither of us should. Now, that is the defense of free speech.
Yes, absolutely. I said from the second he was arrested, he shouldn't be prosecuted and he definitely shouldn't be going to jail, even though what he said was despicable, because there's no way in my mind I could twist it to make me believe he meant it, that he wanted people to be killed. He didn't. And just like with Lucy Connelly, her not caring bad things are happening in the world shouldn't be illegal. And let's go one step further. You've heard about the law in Germany. It's now illegal. People are being arrested in Germany for insulting German politicians online. It's a law, I think, that passed last year.
What? Say that again.
In Germany now, they passed a law last year, and people are being arrested. It's illegal to insult a German politician online.
That's crazy.
Yes. So if that comes here, I want the top bunk. You can have the bottom bunk.
You know what? We'd have some great conversations.
It'd be like porridge.
I do, actually. The program and the food probably do me some good. I could lose a few pounds, to be honest with you. Oh, I'm sorry, a few kilos. Maybe that's illegal too. I'd be slowly drift back into the European Union. So a final question for you. We're almost out of time. Otherwise, we'll run into the next show. In your view, as Home Secretary, what would you have done? I'm going to ask you a series of questions, short questions. What would you have done about the Lucy Connelly case?
If I was Home Secretary when she said what she said, she would have been arrested because I wouldn't know about her until that, and she wouldn't have got to court. None of those people would have got to court. She didn't deserve to go to court. She didn't deserve to go to jail. What she said was perfectly acceptable. Might not have been nice. It might not have been very Christian, but what she said was perfectly acceptable in a free country.
Okay. Second question for you then. What would you have done about Ricky Jones?
Exactly the same. Once he'd been arrested, I wouldn't have known what he did until no. It took days to arrest Ricky Jones. It took days. He only got arrested because of the backlash they knew they'd get if they didn't arrest him. And that's why they dragged out the court case for over a year, so people would forget about Lucy Connelly and the others. There's another 12 people in jail at the moment, like Lucy Connelly. Him, exactly the same. What he said wasn't nice. I never would have said it, but he did it. He wasn't inciting hatred or violence. Nothing should have happened to him.
3 more questions so that you know the limits of the pressure you're under. Third question. If you were Home Secretary, would you have instructed the police to arrest individuals holding signs saying, I support the Palestine Action Group or whatever it's called?
Yes.
Why?
If Palestine Action is a terrorist organization, then people supporting a terrorist organization in this country are breaking the law and they need to be arrested. They need to be arrested not because they're danger themselves individually, but if we let that slide, the next terrorist organization has a foothold to start protesting and start doing stuff they want to do.
Leading me to my second last question. If you were the Prime Minister, would you have prescribed the Palestine Action Group as a terrorist organization?
Based on the information I've seen, and so let's caveat, I've not seen all the information. Based on the information I've seen, no, I would not have. I would have arrested the people who broke into the airfield. I would have I'd have hoped they got sent down. But no, I would not. For me, it doesn't reach the level to be able to class them as a terrorist organisation based on the information I've seen.
Okay, and the final question for you is, if you were Keir Starmer, what would you do? It's a very open question, so you can answer any way that you want. What would you do to assure the British public that his claim to Donald Trump, when he met Donald Trump on British soil, that free speech is alive and well in the United Kingdom, what would you do to prove it?
What could he do?
Tricky question, I know.
There's some quick wins, which would be to repeal some of the laws, repeal the Communication Act, repeal some of the, I can't name these, but there's laws on the books that the police are using to arrest people. Repeal those laws. He's got a majority, a huge majority. He could push through a fast piece of legislation to repeal them, or at least take out the offending sections in those laws. That would be an easy win. He could do that in a couple of months. Bob's your uncle.
Okay. Well, you should be in Parliament, shouldn't you? Not sure who to stand for, but there we go. Tell us about your book. You've got the right to do that.
My latest book, selling well, Anglophobia. It fits into that discussion we had about me, you, Lammy, Guyana, and Estonia. Anglophobia, about the hatred of the English and basically white people now as well. It explains why people hate themselves and hate their own culture, and it explains why foreigners hate us and why foreigners can hate white people. It looks into the psychology, it gives examples, and it talks about what we can do to ensure it doesn't affect us and to make sure we can get over it. We shouldn't allow other people to demonize this country, because this is the greatest country ever to exist in the history of the world. It may not be the greatest today, but if you look over the longer term, this is the greatest country that has given the world so much, and we need to take pride in that.
Thank you so much. Always a pleasure to speak with you, Nick Buckley.